Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the new evolutions that were released in this surprise mini patch overnight. Now, I am wearing these orange tinted glasses to filter out blue light because it actually makes it a lot easier for me to look at a computer screen as everything is less glaring and sharp and just overall for my eye health. So don't be alarmed, I have not received a cyborg robotic upgrade. Now, the idea of these split evolutions is to provide these Godfest exclusives with a more sub and a more leadership role. And this degree of customization is beneficial because it allows you to tailor them to your monster box needs. Now, sometimes there's going to be one clear winner regardless of the leader or sub, and this article will basically be describing like the pros and cons of each and helping you decide which one you should pursue. Now, the implications for split evolutions are mostly that the Godfest exclusives become even more desirable because there will be cases where you may want to actually have both split evolutions and you'd actually have to acquire duplicates of what is already considered the rarer cards in Puzzle and Dragons. So it can be beneficial, but it can also be a drawback. Now, one thing to note is that none of the active skills actually change regardless of which path you take. So you don't have to worry about reskilling them back up when you, say, unevolve them and re-evolve them. They will still have the same active skill. So for Baldin, the Fire Dark form has the 5 killers. He has 886 weighted stats. He's basically the I kill everything evolution, and he has the Dark sub-attribute. Now, conversely, the other form has only 2 killers, and they gain in time extend instead of 3 killer awakenings. But their leader skill has been revamped to 2.25 times health and recovery, along with 36 times attack. And they also have 1,000 weighted stats, but they do lose their sub-attribute. Now, presently speaking, Baldin has never been a strong leader, and even with this upgrade, it's really not a strong leader, to be honest, because 36 times is alright, and you're mostly relying on those killer awakenings to do your damage, while being very durable. Like, you're basically like Krishna, but you're Krishna without row support, if that makes sense. And you're more so relying on the killers, and you have a less helpful active skill. So, in most cases, you should be really pursuing the Fire Dark evolution, because those 5 killer awakenings are allowing you to deal massive amounts of passive damage, and this is crucial for speed farming teams because you're rarely going to be using Baldin as a sub on a traditional team, so you don't have to worry about the fact that you're going to be potentially overkilling or potentially healing a certain boss because, well, that's not what you're using him for. So in most cases, I would strongly recommend you make the Fire Dark form. Next is Balboa, and Balboa has his sub form, which is the wood water, and the leader form, which is wood with no sub attribute. So the sub form gains bind immunity, he gains recover bind, and his leader skill is still the same. It's 6 times attack and 2 times recovery, and they have 791 weighted stats. And that wood sub attribute is important. Now, conversely, the leader typing, or the leader evolution, has a time extend, but no bind immune and no bind recovery. He does have a slightly stronger leader skill in that it's 7 times instead of 6 times, and whoop-de-doo, really, to be honest. There is slightly higher weighted stats. You have 901 versus 791, but that no sub-attribute does kind of hinder if you are required to match 2 colors, which is what the leader skill requires. So, yes, you gained more stats, but you're not necessarily gaining more power overall because you're losing that 30% because you are having to match water if used as a leader. Now, in all honesty, the sub form is actually a better leader because yes, the multiplier may be lower, but gaining bind immunity and that recover bind greatly opens up team building flexibility because you now no longer have to worry about binds to your leader, and you can clear binds from your allies with a row of hearts. So this is quite invaluable, and it makes him actually a lot more powerful of a leader. So in all honesty, I would go for the wood water form in pretty much every scenario. And regardless of which evolution path you do decide to pursue, your best pairing is still going to be Awoken Artemis. Now, a lot of players have been asking about using Balboa's water-wood typing, or water-wood form as a potential sub for Raw Dragon as an alternative to Isis. Now, it does work in principle, however, I do caution against it, not just because the base cooldown is longer, but because of the 2 killer awakenings, and the fact that the 2 killer awakenings are in the middle of his awakening sequence. Because Killer Awakenings will prevent you from having any form of damage control because Balboa will simply be hitting for too much damage. And that is a problem because Raw Dragon teams generally like to have quite strong damage control capabilities. So by having one card dealing significantly higher damage, you're going to run into trouble. If Gung-Ho had rearranged his Awakening sequence, he would have been a much stronger, much more desirable option as an Isis alternative because it does have a 50% shield and it does have a defense break to instantly deal with pre-draws, so he could have been so much better. Maybe they did that because he's a 5-star and they want you to keep rolling 6 stars, perhaps. Next is Green Odin, and Green Odin's new form basically dropped out 3 of the 4 auto heal awakenings. Instead, he gained bind recovery, so he can clear 3 turns of binds of a row of hearts, a single TPA, and 1 more skill boost to bring his total to 3. His leader skill is now 2.25 times attack and 2 times recovery. Not that big a deal, to be honest. And it has 908 weighted stats. There is no sub-attribute, and he did lose his abs. By comparison, the Green Light Odin has 4 auto heal awakenings, 873 weighted stats, so a slightly lower. It does have the light sub-attribute, so it could be beneficial in certain scenarios. It does have a maximum leader skill potential of 3.5 times. He does have abs, and he does have balance typing. Now, the only reason you should ever really keep your Green Odin in his Green Light form is if you need to have the light sub-attribute for some strange reason. You're using him as an alternative Awoken Liu Bei pairing for co-op farming because it does have a higher leader skill multiplier. You require that balance typing for using special killer latents on specific teams, or you just truly love his abs. But if none of those niche scenarios apply to you, I would pretty much almost always go for the new evolution form because those 4 auto heal awakenings were honestly taking up a lot of dead space on Odin, and by dumping them out for more utility of bind recovery, an additional TPA, and a 3rd skill boost is huge. And it's going to make Green Odin a much more offensive cleric or bind clearing option for your mono wood team. So it's actually quite a powerful new evolution for him, and he gained probably one of the stronger ones of the 5. Next is Blue Odin, and Blue Odin's new evolution basically drops all of his TPAs, so he doesn't have any, he basically loses all 3. He gains bind immunity, and he gains a 4th skill boost. His leader skill has also been revamped to 2.5 times health and 6.25 times attack by himself. He has 1,007 weighted stats, but there is no sub-attribute, and he did lose abs again. By comparison, the older Blue Odin has 3 rows and 3 TPA with the 3 skill boosts. He does have 894 weighted stats, so still very respectable, has the Dark sub-attribute, and he does have 2 times health and only 3.75 times attack leader skill, but he does have abs and physical typing. Now, basically the new Blue Odin evolution is pretty much a dream come true because it dramatically improves his viability and usage because it gets rid of the 3 TPAs. And the reason what made Blue Odin kind of awkward sub before was because 3 rows and 3 TPAs basically counteract each other. You can't make a row if you have a TPA, and you can't make a TPA out of a row. So there are very few teams that could really fully capitalize on the dual or the split nature of his offensive awakenings. Perhaps maybe Reincarnated Lakshmi is the best example, but that's really the only one I can think of at this point in time that really could capitalize on rows and TPAs because you tend to mix and match for damage control. Now, gaining this 4th skill boost is invaluable as well as that bind immunity because now we can transform Blue Odin into a hard bind clear by inheriting a bind clear on top of it. So now mono water teams just gained 1,007 weighted stat monster as a bind clear with 3 rows and 4 skill boosts. So you can have your active skills up pretty much ready by turn 1, and you have the ability to basically remove binds or make him into any sort of sub you need because he only has a 6 turn base cooldown, so you can customize Blue Odin to any way you like. So this is a very powerful option. And many players may feel that 4 skill boost feels wasteful, especially in longer dungeons like Arena, but to be honest, Blue Odin is often used as a skill boost stat stick for fast farming teams. And being able to have access to a 4th skill boost monster with high base stats, low base cooldown, is invaluable for farming. So it is very important for people who are using, say, the new Mary teams that just came out of the Heroine Rare machine. So this is a very powerful and important evolution. And lastly, we come to Red Odin. And Red Odin, its new evolution, has a total of 6 fire rows, but he does lose the bind immunity. His leader skill has been propelled to 2.5 times health and 6.25 times attack, and he also has 1,007 weighted stats. But he does have no sub-attribute, but we can really call him Rodin, because Red Odin wrote it. Conversely, the older Red Odin evolution only had 4 rows, but he does have bind immunity and that dark subtyping, as well as 899 weighted stats, along with a lower leader skill from an attack multiplier point of view. Now, being able to say I have 6 rows may sound impressive, but it's not necessarily as desirable as it seems, because yes, there is higher weighted stats, but you did lose your bind immunity and that sub-attribute. Now, generally speaking, a sub-attribute of a different color tends to have lower value, but when combined with this whole bind immune package, it does have lots of implications. Most notably, using the older Red Odin to bait out binds, or especially dark binds. So what happens is basically a lot of, say, endgame or higher end tier content that you may want to farm or button through may have a dark bind somewhere in the dungeon. And with Red Odin, you were able to basically successfully bait out this mechanic and basically bypass one turn for free. And that is tremendously valuable. And in all honesty, you're using Red Odin for the skill boost. You're not using Red Odin for the rows necessarily. And both forms have the exact same number of skill boosts. So you don't really need to make the new Red Odin evolution, because if you want to have a fire row stick, you'd be using Sonata, who has a much more helpful active skill. So while it may seem very nitpicky to say that the Dark Red Odin has a lot of advantages with that bind immunity, it probably won't impact the average player very much, and you can pretty much just go for whatever evolution you please or which artwork you like more. So, in conclusion, new evolutions are always very exciting because it brings life into new cards, especially like Blue Odin and Green Odin. They've just gained significantly more viability. You might start seeing them used more on teams. So let me know who you are most excited about and how you plan to utilize them. Hopefully you'll have a Mantastic day, and happy puzzling!